And so instead of just saying no, many of us had said, here's a better idea. I put out a very, very detailed plan called a Roadmap for America's Future. If you want to know the details of it, you can go to AmericanRoadmap.org. It basically says this. It's an actual law with real numbers to back it up, estimated by the Congressional Budget Office as doing this, paying off, not down, paying off our national debt, fulfilling the mission of health and retirement security, and getting this economy growing again by lifting the yoke of taxes and high interest rates that will accompany if we have a debt crisis. That can be achieved. I won't go into all the policy details, but it is essentially this. If you are 55 and above, if you are somebody who is in and near retirement, this doesn't affect you. It's not about you. You've already organized your life around these programs. You're going to be okay. Those won't be touched. But for those of us in the younger generations, we already know these programs are going bankrupt. We already know we can't afford them. We already know, it's irrefutable, we already know mathematically that the next generation is going to have a lower standard of living. It's the first time we've ever done this in this country. So we know we've got to fix these programs. So what I basically say is, let's fix them. You know, how novel is that? And so we have legislation that fixes these things, and it does it in a way that gives individuals more control over their lives and their destiny. They're not looking to Washington to run their health care and their retirement. They get power to do so themselves. What I specifically say is, let's give people the same kind of plans like I have as a congressman for getting my health care and my retirement benefit. Those are the ideas that give individuals more control so that they can actually help us pay off the debt. But more importantly, we have a century forward of strong individuals, more self-reliant and not dependent on Washington handouts. I would say this. Both Democrats and Republicans have failed to be candid about this fiscal crisis, about our entitlement problems. We have only postponed this crisis by shaking a tin cup at China and Japan. A new Congress could start by fixing all of this. Now, when you take a look at where we are today, we know that we're getting very, very close toward this tipping point. We know that if we can get a good election in 2010, a better election in 2012, we can prevent that tipping point from happening. It is not too late for America to get this right, to turn the corner and prevent us from slipping into that cradle-to-grave welfare state. And I would simply say that it is not a demagogue. I would simply say this. The demagoguery that is coming our way is going to be this. The Republicans are not going to give you a sufficient amount of security in your lives. They're going to harm you. They're going to hurt you. They're going to privatize. They're going to voucherize. Don't vote for them. They can't be trusted. You won't have any economic security. That's simply not true. We can and should have a vibrant, sustainable safety net to help people who truly cannot help themselves, to help people who are down on their luck. The difference is this. We don't want to turn that safety net into a hammock that lulls people into lives of dependency and complacency. That's the difference. We believe that we can turn this corner, but take a look at the agenda and the ideology that is on offense in Washington right now. I would simply say this. A political realignment is on the way. Democratic leaders, they are staking their party's future on their ideological agenda. Barney Frank said it this. Our party is trying to, on every front, increase the role of government when we can. Former President Clinton told a Next Roots convention last year, quote, "We have entered a new era of progressive politics which, if we do it right, could last 30 or 40 years. The question is, do we realign with the vision of a European-style social welfare state, or do we realign with the American idea?" My party challenges the whole basis of progressivist vision of this country's future. We challenge their attack on American exceptionalism. We challenge their claim that bureaucratic centralization is the only way the U.S. can meet the current and future economic and social challenges of our time. Those leaders have underestimated the good sense of the American people. They have broken faith with independents, with Republicans, and their own rank and file. And I would argue they have walked away from the foundational truths that made America the wonder and the envy of the world. The price of their infidelity will be high. I want to simply make an aside. If you don't mind, a pause. I want to tell you how much I just love Oklahoma. You see, my wife, Jana, and I come here about 3 or 4 times a year. We come here for deer season, for duck season, for turkey season. See, Jana likes to refer to these times as Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter. But you get the point. I like to hunt and fish. We're planning on spending half of our year in retirement here in Oklahoma. And I got to tell you, it's not going to be the summer half, because for a Wisconsin guy, it just gets too hot here for me. But I want to say this. This state is truly captivating. It is a state full of big and beautiful, unconstrained country with great-hearted people who know what it's like to live like free men and free women. You take your freedom so seriously here, and I just got to tell you, that is something you should never let go of, because that is something that many people in other states do not appreciate. Some of my friends in Marshall County sometimes call me Yankee, which really is disturbing to me. I always thought Yankees were people up in the Northeast, you know, New Englanders, not people from the upper Midwest. Well, I'm told, needless to say, that I can fix this if I include among my life's achievements the high and noble accomplishment of noodling a giant catfish out of Lake Texoma. So I'm coming back in June. We tried it last June, but the lake level was too high. I'm coming back in June to try and gain this rite of passage so nobody in Marshall County can ever call me Yankee ever again. I'm also hoping I keep my 10 fingers in the process of doing this. But I just want to say this. Knowing America, and obviously knowing Oklahoma as I've come to know it, I am confident, I am very optimistic that the American character is up to every challenge. America is not over. Ronald Reagan used to say, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for our children to do the same. We are that generation. This fight is our fight. This time is our time. And this is the time at hand to reclaim America for freedom. Thank you very, very much. And I want to just say, OCPA is fantastic. Thanks. I'll deal with CPA in the next one.
Congressman Paul. You pick a microphone. I know how to turn it on. Thank you very much. Congressman, would you answer a few questions from our benefactors? First of all, thank you for sharing your heart tonight. We do have a few questions, kind of expand on a few of your comments tonight. The first one, Phil Graham had a piece in the Wall Street Journal last week arguing that resistance to Obamacare is not futile. He hearkened back to Gandhi, who said 40,000 British troops cannot force 300 million Indians to do what they will not do. The question, what should we as citizens do to resist this modern-day intolerable act?
Well, first, we had to repeal the Congress that gave us this act. That's what I would say. Look, we really do believe repeal and replace this with real reform. I've had all these reporters come up to me in the last week saying, do you really sincerely believe you want to repeal this? I mean, do you really want to repeal this? Of course we want to repeal this. We've been fighting this law for the last year and a half. Of course we want to repeal this. Now, what will it take? It will take 2 elections to do it the right way. It will take a Congress to repeal it, but you've got to have a president that's willing to sign a repeal in a law. Obviously, it's not this president. The real part of the law doesn't kick in until 2014. This thing wraps in. You have the tax increases and the Medicare cuts, some of the new regulatory things, but the entitlement itself doesn't get turned on until 2014. So I would argue that we could have a 3-year process by which in 2013, if things go right, then we could repeal it. Is it a high hill to climb? Of course it is. But we've been through these kinds of problems before in America. I do believe we can. And more importantly, this is so unsustainable from a fiscal standpoint. It's going to make health care worse. It's going to raise our prices. Some people may benefit, but you ought to see the sticker shock that is coming with this law. I really do believe that it is possible to pass a repeal of this law and to replace it with the kind of bill that Tom Colbert and I introduced, the Patients' Choice Act, which is patient-centered, market-driven health care reform. That is something we can do.